Hi, I'm Sharon Spangler and welcome to Reno TV. I'm here at Reno City Hall with the new police chief, Steve Pitts. Welcome to our program.
Good morning, Sharon.
I shouldn't call you the new because you were the acting for quite a while before you got this position.
Yes, ma'am.
How does it feel?
It's a great opportunity. I have mentioned once before, I think, at council that the 32 years of service I've had at the Reno Police Department are one of the greatest blessings I've had in my life. And then, of course, to remain as the chief and help regrow the Reno Police Department in the city is an interesting challenge, and I'm up for it.
We brought Steve on to talk about a recent survey that the police department conducted, but before we get into that, just a little bit of your history. Whatever made you want to be a police officer? I
was raised in a very service-oriented family setting. My mother had been in nursing for some 50 years, 40 or 50 years. And always instilled the importance of service. Went to college, played football in the Bay Area, got into criminal justice, and that looked like an interesting field. So I tested in the Bay Area in 78, 79 for jobs, and Proposition 13, the Jarvis-Gann Initiative, passed, and of course cut public safety significantly in California back then. So I came to the Reno Police Department in 1979.
Wow. And you've been through, what, every single department over there? I
have. I've had an opportunity to work in every division. I spent probably about 20 years in operations. Most of that was in patrol operations, training, special weapons and tactics, and I worked in homicide for about 12 years.
Wow. Anything stand out as really memorable that you feel really proud of?
I would say organizationally, I've always been proud of the Reno Police Department. Over the 32 years that I've been there, we have always kind of looked at the horizon in front of us and tried to do things that were progressive and where we added value to the community. And that's a gift that I got from the police department, growing up in there and maturing as a young police officer through obviously different ranks and into command. But there's a variety of homicide cases that I worked that took long hours, a couple of serial cases, Middleton, obviously Mac, things like that were significant that I'm very proud of.
You should be pretty proud. The survey results, so over 90% of the people that were surveyed think Reno is a safe place to live. That's amazing.
I am proud because last year when Donna asked me to come on as the interim in March and Chief Pullman was going to retire, I worked on a reorganization with command staff and Donna, and recommended to Donna and council that in June we reorganize the police department and be prepared to face the challenges that every city, every municipality in the country is dealing with, but specifically what the Reno Police Department is going to deal with as obviously we face this economic disaster and the budget cuts. And that reorganization was approved, and it encompassed adding a couple of elements within the patrol division that have made a significant difference. And one of them is the Community Action Officer Program. The other one is the Crime Suppression Team. And then we built a kind of a progress report around 6 guiding principles. And what I wanted the organization to focus on was progress instead of things depreciating, that we were losing positions. And the survey kind of supported exactly what we predicted would occur.
It's my understanding that you got a grant to add a number of community action officers. And do you think that's made a difference as far as the personal contact that people have had with officers in the field?
I think it has. The idea really percolated at the Reno Police Department in January of last year. We had we actually had 2 community action officers in place. And those 2 officers did such a significant job on community problems. We applied for a grant last year, got about a $3.6 million grant to fund 10 positions and put 10 police officers in that program, and we did that. They were just recognized at council 2 weeks ago for their efforts. I mean, they'll go into neighborhoods in our community and work very closely with obviously property owners and landlords and people living in neighborhoods, and they will bring a plethora of resources to deal with calls for service, crime, or other quality of life issues. And they've reduced calls for service in some cases by 60, 70%.
Wow. I thought it was interesting. The survey is split up, and it also goes into your image.
Yes.
And the marks for on the image were pretty high. 79.8% of those surveyed thought that the city's police department had a really good image, positive image. Do you think the media has a lot to do with that?
I believe it does. I mean, everything, you want transparency, and I would absolutely demand it at the Reno Police Department with the media and the community. And that transparency really occurs in this relationship you have with the media. And I think that's important because obviously they report on a variety of things that we do at the Reno Police Department, crime, community stuff, and in the organization what we're doing to change. We've changed many policies in the last year, and the media have basically reported on a lot of those changes.
And you have a real open door when there is a crime that occurs. You're immediately putting out a news release from your department.
Yes.
When it's something significant, you're holding a news conference and keeping the community updated on what's going on.
Yes. The men and women of the Reno Police Department do an incredible job. It's tough and challenging. Our greatest asset is the community. And when you look at Breonna Dennison's case, it was incredible police work done there. It was incredible detective, investigative work done, but the case was solved by one phone call from a citizen.
Yep.
And in many cases, and again, as I had mentioned, I'd spent many years in homicide, and we would work long hours, and we would do really great investigative work. But it was that person, in many cases, that gave us the information that broke the case.
This I thought was really amazing. The survey question, do you feel safe in your neighborhood during the day? 98% of the people said that they did.
I think it's actually up from the last 5 years, or the previous 5 years.
That's right. That's great.
And again, you've got to give kudos to the patrol division for going out and doing what we asked them to do last year with the reorganization. And that was go out, deal with tough crime and community issues, and don't just pass them off. I mean, many organizations, it's not to be hypercritical, but their patrol divisions are tasked with answering calls for service and then pushing that information to detectives or some other service. And we said, that's not what we're going to do in our patrol division. You're going to go out, you're going to be very, very responsive and proactive and deal with these things. And so we're trying to create a culture at the Reno Police Department that will be sustainable like that. I mean, in 5 or 6 years, these young officers that are out doing this work you're talking about today will be supervisors in the organization, and they'll drive that same kind of progress and thinking.
Well, and it's amazing what they're doing downtown. The community action team has been going into some of these budget motels and really looking at them from the perspective of quality of life,
Yes.
bringing in code enforcement, OSHA officials. They've had surveillance on some of these places for 2 and 3 months to crack down on the prostitution and the drug sales, and really cleaning up those areas that for some people that's their home, because that's all that they can really afford. They're either a step up from tent city or a homeless shelter, or for one reason or another they just really don't fit into a traditional apartment setting.
Exactly, and you'd mentioned the community action officers downtown. You have the downtown bike team, you have the new community safety and service team. Of course, we work very closely with Alex Woodley and his people. And another example, Sharon, that I thought was very impressive and compassionate is they went into the CAC, the Community Assistance Center, where there was some 250 or 260 people living on what they called safe ground, which was Tent City. And now it's down to 8. They've relocated the majority of those people, and we've used money in our budget to make sure those people get back to their families, in most cases that are outside the state.
Interesting. What I thought was kind of funny about the survey is that the people that said that they didn't think the department was doing a good enough job was they thought crime was up.
Yes.
And the statistics show that crime is actually down. So I wonder how that happens, if just the news that they watch, or maybe they had some sort of personal experience. It's hard to tell, but I thought that was really interesting that crime is actually down in our community, but some people still perceive it as being up.
It is down. In the Reno Police Department in the city, in some cases, we're 10 or 15% above reductions across the country, and I think there's a lot of things that contribute to that. Great policing, great community interaction with your police department, and then of course a lot of people are relocating, seeking jobs and employment, and so people can be moving out of our city. But the thing that's kind of interesting with respect to the crime rate and how people rate the efficiency and effectiveness of fighting crime is that if you have a significant event, and we know this when you study sociology, psychology of behavior and how people respond to things, they can think because of that event. If let's say we had a gang shooting 2 weeks before the survey was initiated, they will immediately think that crime is up. Plus, the other thing we talk about all the time is we try to brand the organization in a good way, and we want to make sure the community is informed about crime and community problems. And when you do that with more frequency, people are going to begin to think that maybe crime and community problems are up, when they might be, actually they're down in Reno.
How do you think the budget and all the news about the city's budget woes and the downturn in the economy, how do you think that's affected people's perception of the police department?
It's actually mentioned in the survey that people felt that because of the reductions in every department's budget, definitely police and fire are usually out front in the local government situation. It does. I mean, they're concerned that we're going to have less police officers, and we do, and less resources, and we do. But I was impressed to realize that they do know that we're adapting, and that's an important thing. Because I've done a lot of national work at an executive level in policing, and I've seen a lot of chiefs and a lot of organizations kind of hunker down right now and get rid of programs that are benchmarks in their policing philosophy, in their community, because they just want to get people back into patrol. And it's no offense to really their direction, but I mean, they lose all these programs and things that are working in the community to put people back in patrol, and there's no specific direction in patrol. And George Kelling is a person, he's a professor that I've studied for some 20 or 30 years. He's supported policing efforts for 30 years, 3 decades. And he has always felt that what we've needed to do in policing is really redefine what a good police officer does in the community. Community policing is an important philosophy, but when you have every individual understanding how they can make an impact, add value to what they're doing in the community, you're going to have a powerful patrol division. And that's been our pursuit over the last 14 or 15 months. And I've seen some progress, and I'm very optimistic.
And I think for the officers, when they're working together, particularly as a team on a problem, like the downtown motels and the problems that go with that, or in the neighborhoods with the going out there and being community-based police officers, they're doing more big picture stuff, which I think in the long run really helps the whole community, because it cuts down on crime overall, instead of just out there on patrol, day after day with whatever happens during that day. What do you think people still think are the three biggest issues facing our community as far as crime is concerned?
Well, in the previous 5 years, it was drugs, gangs, and traffic. And we have done a pretty incredible job in the last couple of years with our traffic education enforcement programs. Of course, Public Works and traffic engineering have helped us out significantly in that effort. And I want to say this survey, they talked about theft, gangs, and drugs as the top 3. We have a regional gang unit that actually I had the opportunity to develop in 2000. And that unit has done a significant job in the region on reducing violence with gangs, membership in various gangs, and dealing with the gang problem.
And that's significant.
Significant.
Anything else that you think is important to mention about the survey or what's happening with the department right now?
I think it's important for those watching in the audience that one part of the survey that we predicted would be problematic last year when we reorganized is we moved many people into a stronger and more proactive patrol division with specific outcomes. This is what you're going to do in the community 24/7. Some of the support services like detectives, traffic enforcement, some of our training folks, and some of the regional teams have been reduced. The personnel numbers have been reduced to support that theme. And what we've seen on the back end, Sharon, is that, and you probably saw it in the survey, where we took some hits for follow-up on certain types of investigations. And that's because we've moved 10 or 15 detectives out of detectives back to patrol to make sure they're out on the street answering calls for service and dealing with what we should be doing, which is community problems.
Well, it's always a pleasure to talk to you, and I really wish you a lot of luck in your new job. I think it's amazing that you've taken this on after already being with the department for 32 years. When you talk to you, I really see the love of the job and your real commitment to the community and making it a better place for all of us. So I really appreciate that.
Thank you very much.
And thank you all for joining us on this Reno TV.